Hey everyone, in this video we are going to be talking about sig figs. So sig figs can also be called significant digits as well. So if we're going to talk about sig figs, we first got to know what they are. So they include all the digits. And digits are just going to be numbers. So, for example, if I had 5, 4, 3, 1, those are all digits that are a part of that number. So, include all the digits that are known plus a last digit that is estimated. So, for example, in this number that I had just made, we could say that we know for certain about the 543, and then our estimated digit would be the very last one. Something else to note with our sig figs is as the number, and again, that's a number sign, not a hashtag sign. So, as the number of sig figs increases, the more certain a measurement. Which makes sense, because if we said that sig figs are all of the known digits, well, if I'm increasing these more known digits, then I'm going to have a more certain measurement. And that's also going to affect my precision. So, as precision of a measurement increases, so does the number of sig figs. So basically what we're saying with this is that if I want a really precise measurement, then I need to have more of these known digits in my number. Which leads us to, well, when do I know if something is significant or when something is insignificant? So when is something significant or insignificant? So with that, each digit of our number. So again, remember, each digit is each individual number that makes up your overall number will fall under a different category. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through these different categories and do some examples. So the first category that we have is numbers 1 through 9. And this sounds like exactly what it is. These are numbers 1 through 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So any one of those. They are always significant. Now, I personally highlight these as green because in my mind, green means go. So that means, hey, these are significant. Our next category is something called sandwiched zeros. Now, if something is sandwiched, that means that it's stuck in between two things. So, a sandwich zero is going to be found in between two 1 through 9 numbers. So for example, if we had the number 402, now what we're going to do is we're going to assign a category to each one of these digits. So I know that 4 and 2 are going to be 1 through 9, so they are significant. Now this 0 right here, it is sandwiched in between two 1 through 9 numbers, meaning that there is a 1 through 9 number on the right side and the left side of this 0. So that means that it is sandwiched, so it is significant. And overall, we have 3 sig figs total. Okay. Our next example is, let's say if we had this number. Okay. Well, again, we know that this 4 is a 1 through 9 number, so it's significant. This 2 is 1 through 9, so it is significant. Now, all of these zeros right here, they are all falling between two 1 through 9 numbers. So they are all sandwiched, and they are all significant. So that means overall, we're going to have 6 sig figs total. Okay, now, let's say if we had 4.002. Again, we know that this is 1 through 9. We know that this is 1 through 9, so it's significant. Now, these zeros are still going to be sandwiched. So they are still going to be significant. So that decimal does not change anything in this case because those zeros are still stuck in between our 1 through 9 numbers. So we're going to have 4 sig figs total, and you can abbreviate sig figs with SF. And then briefly, I want to show you that even if I moved the decimal and I had this number instead, we still have our 1 through 9s, and then our zeros, they're still sandwiched in between those 1 through 9 numbers. Doesn't matter where the decimal's at, as long as your zeros have a 1 through 9 number on the right and a 1 through 9 number on the left. So again, in this number, we're also going to have 4 sig figs total. Okay, now our next category of numbers is going to be trailing. So if I'm trailing, that means that I'm coming after a 1 through 9 number. So trailing zeros with a, so that means with a decimal. Okay, so if I had 3.00, this 3 is a 1 through 9 number, it's significant. Then I first have to note the fact that I have a decimal, and then after that decimal, I have zeros. So we're going to call this trailing with a decimal. And since it's trailing with a decimal, those are going to be significant. So that means that we have 3 sig figs total. Now, if we did trailing with a decimal, then we need to talk about trailing without a decimal. So trailing zeros without a decimal. So in this case, that would be if we had something like this. 3 is going to be always significant because it's a 1 through 9. But now, these zeros, there is no decimal. So they are trailing without a decimal. So they are insignificant. So significant, insignificant. And I'm coloring these red because in my mind, red is like no or stop. So that's what I associate with insignificant. So in this number, we have 1 sig fig total. Right? And then our next category is leading. And if something is leading, that means that it's going to come before a 1 through 9 number. So leading zeros. And if you notice, there's really, most of our categories have to do with zeros and where these zeros come in relation to our 1 through 9 numbers. So in this case, we have leading 0.07. So this is going to be a 1 through 9 number. It is significant, but our leading zeros are going to be insignificant, meaning that they're not going to add to the precision or the certainty of my number. So these are leading, so they are insignificant. And that decimal does not affect these leading zeros. So whether that was there or not, it doesn't affect them. Typically, you would see the decimal like that, but just know it's okay. So here we have 1 sig fig total. Now, really fast, I want to put this together in a chart just to make it a little more unified. So we have significant, and then on the other side, we're going to have insignificant. So the categories where I'm significant are 1 through 9 numbers, sandwiched zeros, trailing zeros, with a decimal, and then I'm insignificant if I'm trailing without a decimal, and then leading zeros. Now, I would keep this chart somewhere where I can reference it just because it makes things very nice. Now, we're going to do an example. So instead of having just one category or 2 categories, we're combining all of our categories. So our example is 0.5040. So what we have to do is we have to go through and categorize each digit of this number into a category. So for example, these 5 and 4, I know they're 1 through 9, they're significant. Okay? This right here, this 0, it's coming in front of a 1 through 9, so it is leading. Since it's leading, it's insignificant. This 0 right here has a 1 through 9 on the right and the left, so it is sandwiched. So it is significant. And then this last one it is trailing because it's coming after a 1 through 9 number. And what do we mean by after is it's directly after it. It's the digit right beside of it. Now, we got to figure out, do we have a decimal? Yes. So trailing with a decimal. So that means that we are significant. Now, we got to go through and we have to highlight our significance and our insignificance. So in total, we have 4 sig figs. Last thing that we have to talk about with our sig figs is there is a time when we could have unlimited sig figs. So that can happen if you count something. So, for example, if you had 18 dogs, 20 pins, or 3 people. And notice in those, you are going through and counting those things. Or I could have unlimited if I have a defined quantity. And what we mean by that is if we were to say that 1 minute equals 60 seconds, that's defined, we know that. Or we know that there's 7 days in 1 week. Or there's 52 weeks in a year, and so on. Okay? Now, that is all for our sig figs.